I didn't get a great LSAT score, so I didn't even apply to law school. I did not get the job that I was hoping for with International Justice Mission. And that was okay because the Lord called me to something else, but in the same field. Hi, I'm Natasha Paradeshi, and I'm an InterVarsity alumna. I'm living out the Lord's calling in my life to help fill gaps and serve vulnerable populations. Welcome to InterVarsity World Changers.
Natasha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you. I'm looking forward to hearing about your story. But before we jump into that, would you just give us a brief introduction, help our listeners get to know you a little bit?
Sure. So I am married for 12 years to the love of my life, Sunny Paradeshi, and I have two kiddos, Zachariah, who's 8, and Sophie, who's 5 years old, and we are also about to start on our adoption journey. So We're excited about that. Yes, I went to undergrad. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, studying business and Spanish. And then I went to grad school studying my master in public policy at the University of Southern California. And in both of my schools, I was part of InterVarsity. And at UT, I was part of a South Asian Christian fellowship called One Way.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. Yes. All right. So I'm excited to dig into a few of these elements and the ways that InterVarsity in particular played a big role in some of the stories that you're going to tell us today. Before we do that, though, you and I chatted, I don't know, a few weeks ago at this point, and there's this phrase that you used when we were talking, and you said it again at the very top of the episode, and that's this idea of helping vulnerable populations and filling gaps. So I'm wondering, Natasha, just as maybe even a framework for the rest of our conversation, I mean, is that the way that you think about the Lord's calling in your life? Is it sort of like a life motto? Like, what does that mean for you, and how has it been a guiding principle for you?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like the Lord has called me into things where a problem has not been solved or a need has not been met. And I figured this out early in my life. And I think part of that was applying to jobs or internships where the doors were closed. I did not get them. And I was just trying to understand. I felt like they felt like a good fit, but I didn't get them. And then I realized there are so many needs and hurting people. And I'm just wondering if there's something else. And once I started identifying certain gaps, I realized, okay, maybe the Lord's asking me to step through these doors because I know they're incredibly hard. And human beings are incredibly creative people. And one thing that I feel like the Lord has built me for is entrepreneurship. And just being able to figure out how are we going to be able to provide excellence in everything that we're doing, whether we're serving people, whether that's making a ministry work or starting a nonprofit organization or a business, both of which the Lord has called me to serve in. And so I believe this is a calling that I've had since I was a teenager, honestly. Okay.
And it sounds like maybe it's an invitation to step sort of off the beaten path and an invitation to be creative as well. Feels like maybe some elements that the Lord has wrapped up in that invitation for you.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think everybody has to figure out for themselves, what does that look like in my life? Whether that is, a traditional role in a job or whether that's starting something new. Not everybody needs to start something. I just feel like for me, that was what God was calling me to. And after it just doesn't leave you. It's a seed that he plants into your heart. You dream about it. You wake up thinking about it. You figure out you're reaching out. He gives you the right people to help solve that problem.
Yeah. We're going to dive into the particulars of what some of the application of this has looked like. But you said that this was an invitation that you started feeling like very early in your life. I'd like to jump back to your college experience, and can you shared that you were a part of InterVarsity at both of the schools that you attended. Can you tell me the story? Like, paint us a picture of how it was that you came to meet InterVarsity in the first place.
Sure. So I am South Asian. but I didn't have a lot of South Asian Christian friends growing up. And when I got to college, they were tabling outside one way, and there were a lot of South Asians who were believers, and just it was interesting to be able to have my, background, my culture, and people who were believers like me. And I just wanted to see what that was like, see what community looks like there. And so I was really excited to be able to join One Way. And my freshman year, somebody invited me to be a part and to go to Urbana. So I went to Urbana in 2006, not knowing what to expect. I just wanted to be able to go to this missions conference and learn about, the possibilities out there. And when I was at Urbana, I heard somebody from International Justice Mission speak about human trafficking. And I knew that's the moment where I knew in my heart, in some way, shape or form, I would be in this type of work. And I thought at the time that meant being a lawyer, going to India and with International Justice Mission. And those doors were closed. I didn't get a great LSAT score, so I didn't even apply to law school. I did not get the job that I was hoping for with International Justice Mission. And that was okay, because the Lord called me to something else, but in the same field. And so I ended up working with an organization in LA that was in the anti-trafficking space. And so I got to learn through that organization.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like your experience with Urbana was incredibly important in this process, and that following Urbana was where you started experiencing, or were you able to see some of those moments of like, here's the obvious next step. It's becoming a lawyer. It's going to India to do this work. It's working with IJM, and like, none of those ended up being options. And this is where you're sharing, like, the Lord invites me into these sort of unique routes for getting to the places that he's inviting me, and not necessarily the most obvious ones.
Right. Absolutely. But I did work with, I volunteered with a woman in Austin. Her name was Melissa Russell, who she did development work for IJM. And she actually started me down my development path in fundraising by teaching me how to write thank you notes. Just something very simple in the development fundraising space. And she taught me the importance of that personal touch and connection, which actually led me to where I am today. But she ended up becoming the president of IJM. But I'm amazed that I got to be able to start my work in the development space, because ultimately we know nonprofits, in order to do the work that we do, we need to fundraise. We need resources to be able to go out there and provide excellent services to those that deserve them. And so that was also a great tie to my days at UT, was being able to do that. We also did some anti-trafficking awareness events through InterVarsity on campus. So it wasn't just me, it was InterVarsity as a whole at UT would do these campaigns. I think we did some not for sale events on campus as well. And so I kept learning about the field even while I was in college.
So you mentioned Urbana as a freshman. You've mentioned some of these different events that you did on campus. Are there other things that you look back on with your time with InterVarsity? You say these are some really formative experiences, or even just formative ways of thinking and being that the Lord used through InterVarsity to really set me up for the ways that he was going to call me to engage with him after graduation?
I learned to study and read the Bible when I was part of One Way. It didn't happen before college, even though I did grow up in an amazing, loving Christian home with amazing parents and church. But when I really started learning how to read the Bible and understand how to talk about that in community groups and small groups that we were a part of, that was very meaningful to me. I remember going through a period in college where I was I was depressed, and going to my InterVarsity leaders, JP, John, and Maureen, and they were so incredibly kind, thoughtful, helpful, speaking scripture into my life. I remember JP, I remember the space we were sitting in and speaking Psalm 121 over me, which is still one of my favorite Psalms to this day, to remind me to look up to the heavens, look up to the Lord. And he is our maker. And that's where our help comes from. And so if any hard trial and season, which comes up in all of our lives, that's what I remember. That's one of my first Psalms that I taught my kids. And
Wow.
And so, yes, incredibly formative, knowing how to apply and realize that we must be in alignment with the Lord in order to do this incredibly hard work, where there's a lot of spiritual warfare. And I think that I know that my faith was deepened through being a part of One Way. We also had, there was one particular person, her name was Esther, who was incredibly important and meaningful in our life. And she got brain cancer when we were in undergrad. And her faith, just going through that at such a young age, seeing how much she trusted in the Lord through that time. And she did end up eventually passing away while we were in college to that. But seeing her faith as well helped deepen my own faith and trust in the Lord through, no matter what, even if the Lord does not heal, our hope is in the Lord alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine, as you've said, kind of being led out of the sort of the expected path into places that require a lot of creativity, and knowing some of the work that you're going to share a bit about here in a little bit, knowing some of the work that you're stepping into. I mean, it seems to me that those were moments that, the Psalm 121 moment, this relationship with Esther, that those are things that would sort of help bolster you in walking those paths and walking alongside people who have had some very difficult experiences in life, and moments where you're like, wow, where is the hope of Jesus in this situation?
Right.
And knowing where to look, where does my help come from, that it comes from the Lord, and to have those things to sort of send you out and to prepare you for those experiences sound like very fundamental moments in preparation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I think about Joe, who was my InterVarsity director when I was at USC, and how incredibly prayerful and guiding he was, and just encouraging us to live out the Lord's calling. So when I was in grad school, he always asked us how to connect what we were doing to how we were serving the Lord. And so I'm just thankful for leaders like that who we need, and mentors. I think that we need to remember how incredibly amazing our families are to the work that we do, our families and our friends, because I do not think that so much of what I was able to do would have been possible without the support of my husband and my parents and my sister, and having that community, right? Just knowing that you have a community, and we need community. We need each other to do his work.
Yeah. Natasha, you've already started kind of pointing us in this direction a couple of times, but I know that one of these spaces where you were able to step in with people, you're able to fill gaps, you're able to engage with a vulnerable population, help a vulnerable population, was with The Landing. Can you tell us about The Landing? This is up to this point. This is new terminology for our listeners. So tell us, what is The Landing, and how did it come about?
Yes. So Landing is a ministry in Houston that serves survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation with a trauma-informed approach, and it's fueled by the love of Christ. I will say there was a time in my life, coming out of grad school, where I felt like you couldn't do great work serving the anti-trafficking population and be a Christian organization. Okay. And the reason was that I thought, everybody, like people in the church, have great, wonderful hearts, but aren't looking to what are best practices to help these populations. It was all heart-led, is what I thought. Well, the Lord humbled me, because I moved back from California to Texas, and then I started engaging more with other organizations in the space, which it seemed like every organization in Texas was a faith-based ministry. And then the Lord humbled me and said, you can do both really well. And that's what I want you to figure out. I want you to figure out how to do this both really well and to step into a space where survivors aren't being served, because less than 1% of victims of trafficking are actually identified and receive the help that they need to be able to be free. And so that's why I ended up helping to start the landing. So I worked with another organization and then realized that a lot of survivors aren't ready for safe homes or going into a shelter. There's a lot holding them back from receiving that help, being identified, receiving the help, and where their mindset is, they don't even think that that's possible. They don't think that they're worthy of anything more. They don't believe that there are options for them. They believe that what they know is that that's all that they know, is where they're at. And leaving their situation can also be very dangerous. So there's many factors a survivor may not receive the help that they need. And we wanted to be able to come alongside them, just as Jesus comes alongside us and say, we're going to meet you wherever you're at, right? Whether you're still in your exploitation, whether you're still being trafficked, whether you have come out of that situation, you still need services. And so that's why we decided to start a space. There's our main program is a drop-in center. It's a safe space where survivors can come to receive help. So they get case managers to help them work with them on certain goals. And they help the survivors work on the goals themselves. And a case manager comes alongside them to really let it be led by the survivor instead of us dictating to them what exactly they're supposed to do. And I think that's really important to have a type of program like that. Not every program needs to be like that, but to even have the option. So we decided to start the landing on one of the main hotspots for trafficking in Houston. It's a nationally known hotspot for trafficking, where survivors come in from all over the United States. And we needed to be in the heart of it. So they have access to be able to rest. Sometimes they're just tired. They just need a safe place to be. They're able to receive hot meals. They're be able to get access to job help, resume building, art classes, Bible study, so much in that space. And it's really about building trust. It's about building relationships and trust. And so whenever you're ready for it, that next step, we're here for that, whether that is going into a safe home, whether that is being able to go to court and testify against a trafficker, right? So whatever that is, it stems from we're going to love you no matter what. And so that's one of the main programs is a drop-in center. We also go out and share. We do outreach on the streets, in the courts, in businesses, just to let people know about the services that we provide. So that's outreach, and even online. And then the third program is a youth advocacy program. So we have 24 youth advocates on call 24/7. Whenever a youth survivor is recovered, law enforcement can call, other organizations can call, and a youth will be paired with an advocate and walk alongside them and their family to receive services. So we actually just celebrated 10 years this year.
That's amazing. That's so great.
And we know that in starting any ministry, it takes a full community to help make something possible. And two people that helped start the landing alongside me were Deborah and James Gates. So I'm incredibly thankful to them and so many others that made this ministry possible.
Is there a story or two that you can share about sort of the journey that someone has gone on through this program, and sort of like, and this is where things are going for them now?
Yeah. There's so many stories, but, there's been, over the past 10 years, we've served over 2,700 survivors of trafficking. And a couple of things pop up to me in the past, but I remember in the very beginning when I started, there was one survivor who would come through, and sometimes she would show up with bruises on her face. There was so much trauma that she was facing, but she really wanted to be able to get out of the life, be able to leave her situation and do something else. And so we were able to help her get into a certified nursing assistant program. Okay. And but sometimes it was hard for her during that program to be able to get up or even get there. So I remember going to her door, sometimes if she wasn't awake and knocking on her door and saying, it's time to go early in the morning. And she completed her program. It was hard. It was a hard situation, but she did. And so she became a certified nursing assistant, and she said that she discovered that she loved working, going into homes with elderly people and loved working with them, loved talking to them. She didn't even know that she enjoyed that. Yeah. So that was just such a beautiful moment to be able to see that in her life and walk that out. There's other survivors that have gone through our empowerment program where they're going through training and to be able to either start their own business or get a job. And one survivor who has gone through the cohort, she decided she wanted to start a cleaning business afterwards, and it became a very successful cleaning business. And then she went back, and we have a kind of a graduation ceremony after the empowerment program. And so she ended up being like the keynote speaker for the next cohort and encouraging them. And there was not a dry eye in the room when she was sharing her story. And I've loved seeing that program just grow over the years, and people want the support, people want the help, people want the community. And I think what's so amazing about it is that survivors are helping each other. So it's not just about, coming in the staff's supporting. It's they've built a community there. Like people call the landing their family. Like sometimes for some of them, like that's their only family that they have.
My goodness. Has anybody ever like made their way through the program and then come to work with the landing? I mean, it sounds like people come back and sort of have this keynote speaker moment, but has there ever been anybody that's come back and started and volunteered or worked full time with the landing?
Yes, we haven't had anybody who's gone through a program and worked full time. We've had internships, so we've had survivor internships programs, and so they help survivors navigate the drop-in center. So they are paid internships. And so they have helped them navigate the center, help them. And some of them have wanted to start their own nonprofits after being there as well, or gone on to do case management at a partner organization. So I think that's been such a beautiful moment. We have had survivors who have worked at the landing or had family members work at the landing as well. So that's also been really beautiful too.
That's so great to see that type of perpetuation of a ministry experience like that as somebody who knows now helping guide somebody into and sort of get accommodated in the space. And like, I can speak to this because I've experienced it firsthand. And what a beautiful picture of somebody that's gone through that process. And like, now I have an opportunity to walk alongside somebody as they're doing this too. And that's such an amazing image.
It's beautiful because it's important to get their perspective and realize that they need to be part of creating what this is and improving it, because we only knew what we knew when we started, right? We went and visited drop-in centers all over the US to be able to figure out like what should this look like, but it's evolved so much over time. So it's not just even on the staff, it's even on the board. We've had survivors as well to speak in at different levels, governance and operations and so many different pieces. And I think that that's kind of created the beauty of where we are.
Now, Natasha, I know that while you were working at the landing, that there was also like this moment in your sort of personal and family life that happens that sort of like opened doors or began to bring about another opportunity. It set in work some motion with another vulnerable population and another creative way for you to fill a gap that ended up coming out of this. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of that pivotal moment that happened?
Yeah, sure. So in 2018, my sister was admitted to a residential treatment program for OCD, and she had almost lost her life to it.
Wow.
And so that was a really hard moment, a hard time. Remember having to go for just visiting hours to see my sister. And at that time my son was 8 months old. And so, just mental health challenges are something that people still don't understand, and it's still so stigmatized. But after my sister came out of the residential treatment program, she wanted to be able to help people understand the more stigmatized form of obsessive compulsive disorder, which a lot of people just make fun of, right? A lot in our society, and not realizing how incredibly hard and debilitating it can be to live with. So there's the cleanliness OCD, which also super hard, her type, and there's some other types that are like more intrusive thoughts. OCD, a lot of people experience OCD potentially like on a spectrum, right? But to the point where it gets that it interferes with how you live your life, that's where it can start to become really hard to live with and sometimes dangerous for themselves, right? And so after she came out of the program, she decided she wanted to create a documentary about OCD to help share with the world, share with family members, to help understand this mental health challenge a lot more. And so it started off as, she calls me Didi, which means older sister. Would you help me with, producing this documentary? I know nothing about the film industry, but she was in the film industry. So she studied radio, television, film in school. But and my background in starting nonprofits and with our business is on either the business development or the fundraising side. And so in order to create a quality documentary, we would need to fundraise. And so she asked me to come and help her on that. And the documentary's name is An Unquiet Mind. What started off as that 20-minute, what we thought 20-minute, 2-year maybe project turned into almost 7 years now. And we have been going through the film festival circuit around the US, and it's gotten a couple of awards, which praise Jesus for that. But the most important thing is that it would help raise awareness about what this looks like. And we just had our private screenings in Houston and Austin, where we were able to actually see at scale the effects of this documentary in people's lives, and what people came back and said to us after the documentary. Some people had never talked about their mental health challenges of themselves, of their family members. They asked about how to receive help. It allowed space for conversation around something that they didn't even know who to talk to, right? Because they were scared potentially of like what other people would think, how to even get help. And so that's the incredible journey that we've been on with An Unquiet Mind is the name of the documentary.
Okay. Are there sort of next steps that are coming along with the Unquiet Mind?
Yes. So we will we have an educational distributor that's going to be helping us determine where the film will be shown for people to be able to access. So don't have all the details of that yet, but we know, we also just got an agreement with American Airlines to be able to show the documentary there. Yeah. For, currently for 6 months, and we'll see where that goes. So that's exciting. But if this can help change someone's life, to know that there are resources and help out there, and also the right treatment, right? For a long time, my sister didn't even receive the right type of therapy to help her move forward. And then once she got into this residential program, and once she was able to get the right type of therapy, that's when her healing process started. And so I think that's also important for people to know, is that there are different types of therapy and support. And so we want to be able to share that with everyone.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that this wouldn't have been like your first experience sort of navigating some of the realities of, mental health issues, that this would have been stuff that you had come across during your work right there at the landing as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of us has faced some challenges with families and friends, and even, myself facing mental health challenges, but then that helps you be more empathetic to
Yeah.
situations with the vulnerable populations you're working with. And so, yes, at the landing, a lot of survivors faced various mental health challenges. So it was really important for us to collaborate with organizations in the community that specialized
Mm.
in that area. And right now, our counseling services are through the roof. Like, our counselor is booked solid.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so, we didn't have that at the very beginning when we started, but I think as we grew, as the understanding of how to serve them better grew, now, I mean, it's a full-time service that is booked throughout the week.
That's amazing. I mean, such an amazing overall coverage that is provided as you think about the work that's happening at the landing, and it seems to me that that's like I mean, is this a fairly unique approach to the work that you talk about? Almost this like self-guided approach of like we don't want to pull people along or tell them this is exactly what it looks like to sort of navigate this process. Is that a fairly unique option when people show up at the landing? It's like, boy, nobody else really provides help in this way.
Right. Yes, it is fairly unique, but we did learn from a couple of other drop-in centers, not all that served specifically survivors of trafficking, some that were youth drop-in centers. There was one that served, there was two that we visited that served survivors of trafficking. But yes, it's not something that people really think about because what we're drawn to is the rescue. People are drawn to rescue missions. And while that has a space and is important, equally important is making sure that we're serving alongside and meeting people right where they are. And so even in starting the landing in the drop-in center, I think that was one of the hard pieces was explaining to people what this is, because they were just like, wait a second, they're survivors. I mean, they're trafficking victims. They're chained up somewhere. They're not allowed to leave. There's lots of situations that they're thinking about what it looks like and not realizing that survivors of trafficking like live amongst us too.
Right.
And sometimes they do have a certain amount of physical freedom, but there are mental chains that are holding them back from receiving help or even being known. Right. And so it is a very unique type of work. We did present on it at a national conference as well, this approach to this drop-in center concept. And there was lots of people there wanting to know how they can start similar programs. Wow. So we have talked to others, around the U.S. about how they could do something similar, even if it's an extension of, say, their safe home option, because it is expensive to run any type of ministry. A safe home, especially, sometimes you're working with, say, 8 survivors in a year, and you have to have that intentional work and program to help them along their healing journey. But then there are the masses as well, right? Like there's thousands, hundreds of thousands that are out there that they still need that touch. The people who you want to tell them that you're loved, like we love you, Jesus loves you, and meet them right where they're at, and introduce Jesus to them in a way that we understand the trauma that they faced, maybe even the church hurt that they faced, but that we can still show that who Jesus really is and how much he loves them. And so we just need to be thoughtful in that approach as well.
Yeah, it reminds me, I cannot remember exactly the passage, but I'm pretty sure it's in James, where it talks about this sort of like, what good is it to tell your brother or sister who's hungry or needs clothes, like, go in peace, keep warm and well fed. Just this whole like, hey, the most important thing is that you know that Jesus loves you. And it's like, actually, for this person, the most important thing is that they have access to the thing that they need. Like the thing, like what is needed is available, and we can sort of bundle these things together as they go, and as trust is built, and as they open up to some of the other opportunities, and we can sort of walk at the pace that they want, and not just say like, well, when you're ready for a Bible study, then like come on over and we can take care of you. Right.
And I mean, it's even offering prayer to some people who don't believe yet, but like just it might start with just asking, how can I pray for you?
Yes. So, Natasha, I have an obvious question that I ask every one of my guests towards the end of our time together. And that's, as you think about this vision of helping vulnerable populations and filling gaps, would you say that this has been a place where you've gotten to partner with God in his world-changing work?
Most definitely. Absolutely. One of my favorite verses is Micah 6:8. This is what the Lord requires of you, to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And that speaks to me on a daily basis. It really does. And I think I'm always asking myself, it allows me to ask myself the question of what gap is the Lord helping me step into today? Because we have a very short amount of time on this earth, and I want to make the most of every single day and every single breath that he's given me. And if somebody else can do that, and if somebody else can step in that gap, I don't want to. Like I think it always reminds me of, I think that's why I'm not necessarily drawn or feel called to where there are lots of people that can do that. Yeah. I'm drawn to, Lord, what is it specifically that you want my gifting to be used for? And I think that's a question that we all ask ourselves too, right? Like where is he calling me today? What gap is he calling me to fill today? And how can I best serve? How can I best serve? And right now what that looks like for me is I serve full time at a ministry called Hope Media Group. So the Landing is thriving. I might have mentioned earlier, we served over 2,700 survivors in 10 years, which is, praise God, right? Amazing. Praise the Lord for that. But I don't work there full time anymore. Okay. And I think that's, for some people, he called us to create and then release. And sometimes that's really hard. And because you want to hold on and you want to say, wait a second, I helped start that. And I want to affect this and this and that. And kind of have that founder syndrome creep back into your life. But then you're like, but what is that? If I'm holding on, what is that preventing me from doing if I had my hands like this open every day and saying, Lord, how can I best serve you? And so the ministry that I'm at right now, which I never thought I would do this, but I am at a ministry where we engage people to love Jesus, serve others, and spread hope through media, whether that's through radio or podcasts, live experiences, online. And seems so different from like the social justice or the direct services work that I'm doing. But I'm like, how can this platform where we're reaching, millions be used for his glory? Because we're not only sharing about the love of Jesus and who he is, but as I'm hearing the stories and seeing the impact that we get to make on, on people, like we had the world's biggest baby shower for moms and me who don't have access to diapers, potentially like 17,000, I believe, diapers at this past, event that we did, feeding the homeless, so many different things we get to talk about and share through this platform. And so I'm just excited about how the Lord allows me to fill in. And when I'm there right now, I'm working in development and fundraising and understanding how we can invite people to more deeply partner to be able to serve and reach people where they're hurting the most. And so I just love that. I love that we get to do that. My husband and I are transitioning out of our marketing business, serving nonprofits and helping them get their word out. But it's a time for us to also simplify. We realized in order to serve bigger, we also needed to simplify our lives as well. So I'm excited to just to be a part of this ministry and partner with the Lord in whatever he calls me to.
Thanks for tuning in, alumni. If you know someone who would enjoy the InterVarsity World Changers podcast, please be sure to share the episode with them. You can also support the podcast by leaving a rating and a review or by visiting our donation page in the show notes. InterVarsity World Changers is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Santera, and edited by Caleb Leppert. Our theme song is Crazy by InterVarsity alumnus Andy Minio. Go change that world, alumni.